What's going on, George Mason University? Welcome back inside the Pressbox. I'm Nathan LaPierre.
And I'm Matt Newman.
And we've taken a nice month-long vacation to observe for the month of March.
Yes.
To observe one of our favorite parts of March, March Madness.
Yes. March Madness refers, of course, to the NCAA tournament and all the craziness it entails. And this year, we had a couple rounds that were pretty crazy and a couple rounds that weren't so much. What do you think were some of the highlights from this year's tournament?
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely very divided. You had the first couple rounds, especially the first round, where there were a lot of exciting upsets, which is almost just becoming the norm. You had Middle Tennessee State beating Michigan State. Michigan State was like the second or third most team picked to win the entire tournament. I had them going to the finals, so that was huge. But you see these 15 seeds winning now all the time.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. And of course, you saw teams, a couple double-digit teams like Gonzaga and Syracuse, making runs into the tournament. Yeah. So Stephen F. Austin pulled off another nice first-round upset. Then you had these middle rounds where there were like almost no upsets. So it was kind of like, which was ironic for this season because it seemed so balanced. Like it seemed like there was no real favorite. But then the favorites during the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four basically won all of the games with the exception of Syracuse. Upsetting UVA, which was like the highlight of those middle rounds.
I think that was one of my favorite moments in the entire tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, Syracuse was losing by 10, 15 points in the second half of that game, but then they went on that crazy 25-4 run. Boeheim put them in that they've actually put him in the press instead of his usual zone, and that brought up a lot of points from people like, what if he had done this more often over the course of the years instead of sticking to that 2-3 zone, which is iconic integral part of the Syracuse defense. What if he had kind of switched it up and let some of his athletes play different? I mean, that's a very good question to ask because Jim Boeheim is one of the most respected coaches in all the sport. But he kind of. They were wondering, like, does he stick to his guns too much? Because look at what happens when he does something different. They were able to pull off a dramatic comeback win. And really was one of my favorite moments of the entire tournament was watching Syracuse come back to win that game.
Yeah, that was a great classic moment. Another one, of course, you have to mention is the Northern Iowa half-court buzzer beater by Paul Jesperson. Yeah. So that was another classic moment. I think with Syracuse, what the key was, and of course the eventual winner Villanova, and it's worth mentioning that was a great title game, Villanova in North Carolina, the first buzzer beater to win the tournament since 1983. I think the key for both of those teams is they just got hot at the right time. I'm not even necessarily convinced Villanova was the best college basketball team that year. I think Kansas and UNC would have probably been the matchup of the two best teams, but Villanova caught fire, so did Syracuse, and that's the type of thing that happens in the tournament. That's why it's really exciting. It's unpredictable.
Yeah. It was... I would say that title game will go down as the best one ever. I mean, first off, you have to tie the game, a ridiculous shot from Marcus Page. He did a double clutch three-pointer on the way falling down.
Right. I
mean, there's one, he probably shouldn't have made that shot. So, UNC fans, they're like, oh, we were robbed. Like, you probably shouldn't have had that shot.
Yeah, true.
I mean, as spoken from someone who has been a fan of UNC for my entire life, until I came to Mason, which I switched my allegiance over, just saying. But anyways... Marcus Page, that is a shot that will go down, I think, is even better than the game-winning shot, just in terms of sheer difficulty. But then for them to answer with that, it was first off, it was a great play by Arcidiacono to bring the ball down and kind of set the screen off for Chris Jenkins. And then that was just for him to have the poise to nail that. That was just incredible.
Yeah, and I think the game-winning shot is always going to get more attention. But actually, and especially if UNC had gone on to win that game, that pose by Marcus Page, I think could have been like iconic, where he was like in midair and his feet were back. Like that could have been an iconic pose. Yeah. Maybe it still will be. So. We'll see, but that was a really great title game.
I also think this is one of the funniest NCAA tournaments you had a couple of really funny things going on. First off, of course, you had the great explanation of a rebound from the Baylor team after they lost. One of their players just had an incredible explanation of why rebounds were so important to the game, just like how they got out rebounded. Check it out. Look up the Baylor rebound story. And then the second thing was after UNC won the title game, all of the crying Jordan meme just spread out over all the entirety of the internet, which I've never seen. Oh, it was so terrible to see so many crying Jordan faces as someone who has been a UNC fan. They played Mr. Jumpman over there. That was rough.
Yep, yeah. And I want to give a special shout out to our friends and partners at the UConn women's basketball program. They had an incredible season, and we've been really following that program and having our scouts there for our WNBA franchise that we're starting up soon, the Pressbox team. So that's been really exciting to watch them. And Brianna Stewart, what a career!
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Four straight championships. Gino Auriemma is already one of the greatest coaches, probably already the greatest coach in women's college basketball history, and it's between him and Wooden for college basketball in general, I think. So that's just an unbelievable dynasty.
Of course, this is probably a bigger discussion, but I just want to get your kind of thoughts on this right now. Do you think this is this sort of dynasty, man? Because what it is a dynasty.
It's a dynasty.
That cannot be disputed.
Sure.
I think he has 11 championships, right?
Yeah, 10 or 11, something like that.
Do you think that's good for the game, or do you think that's kind of like a hindrance to the game?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's been widely discussed. My personal opinion is that, for the game right now, it seems like it's not good because just everyone's getting plastered. So for those players right now that aren't on UConn, it's not good for them. But I think in the long run, it is a good thing because, women's sports in general and women's college basketball in particular has always been struggling to get national attention, and you hardly ever see headlines on the top of national news sites like ESPN, or it's not discussed that often. But you've seen UConn this year being discussed because they're so absurdly dominant. And in some ways, you can draw parallels between where UConn is now and where John Wooden's UCLA teams were 50 years ago in terms of the competitiveness of the game. Nowadays in men's college basketball, it's not even possible to have that absurdly long of a complete dynasty, and maybe in women's basketball it won't be in the future. So I think by drawing attention to the game and inviting in competition, I think it will ultimately be a good thing for women's college basketball in the long run.
Yeah, I think you were drawing parallels with the UCLA teams. I'm going to draw a parallel kind of to something that's happening right now, where you have Ronda Rousey, where she absolutely dominated women's MMA for a period there.
Yep.
And she was just choking people. I'm not choking people out. She was getting people. That
arm people out.
Yeah, arm people out.
Them out.
She was just unstoppable. And when she was finally stopped, it drew so much more attention to the game, to the sport, that it kind of changed everything up there. I kind of see how that same sort of thing happened with UCLA, where they have this dynasty now, and once that dynasty ends, that can really set up some people to become the new faces of college basketball. But to be honest, I don't see that UCLA dynasty stopping anytime soon.
Yeah.
But no one saw Ronda Rousey losing either. So that would be a very interesting thing to follow up on coming on here in the near future.
Yeah, that's a really good parallel. I didn't think of that. So good job, buddy.
Yeah, I'm good at making those parallels.
Yeah. He always stays never perpendicular, never orthogonal, always parallel.
Very unorthodox predictions from Matthew Newman on the press box. Anyways, I think that's probably all the time we have today. We're drawing a little bit too many parallels, starting to get a little bit slanted over here. But anyways, thanks for watching the press box. We love our fans at home. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Matt Newman.
I'm Nathan LaPierre.
Press on, George Mason. Press on.